Up to this point, everything I've talked about, my confusion, my search for a foothold, and how I eventually came to self as the base, has really been the first half of today's lecture, centered on my own story. From here, I'd like to shift gears and move into the second half. People generally think of Gakushuin as a school attended by those from families with a certain social standing, and I suspect they're not entirely wrong. If my guess is correct, that very few of the poor find their way here, and that most of you come from what we would call the upper strata of society, then there is one thing that will almost certainly attach itself to you once you go out into the world: power. Put differently, when you step into society, you will, on average, be able to exercise far more power than someone who starts life at the very bottom. Earlier, I said that you need to keep working, keep digging, until you strike something, until you hit the ore that is truly yours. That process, I argued, is the source of your happiness and peace of mind. Why? Because only when the individuality you were born with collides with the right kind of work do you finally feel your feet plant firmly on the ground. Once you sit down there, really sit down, and start moving forward step by step, your individuality has room to unfold and grow. The moment your work and your individuality click into place, you can finally say from the heart, "So this is where I belong. This is my proper seat in life." Now, if we look at this thing called power through the same lens, what is it really? In essence, power is a tool, a device you can use to force your own individuality down onto other people's heads. If you think tool sounds too blunt, then let's say it is at least an instrument that can be used in that way. Next to power comes money. You too are likely to possess more of it than the poor. Seen in the same light, money becomes an extremely handy device for stretching your individuality outward, using it as bait, as temptation, to pull other people into your orbit. Taken together, power and money are very convenient tools. They let you press your individuality onto others far more than a poor person ever could, or else lure others over to your side and reshape them in your preferred direction. Precisely because they have that kind of force, they look impressive from the outside. Yet in reality, they are extraordinarily dangerous. Earlier, when I talked about individuality, I focused mainly on how it takes shape in things like scholarship, literature, or personal taste, until you find the place where it can settle and grow. In truth, though, the reach of individuality is much broader than that. It is not confined to learning in the arts. Let me give you a simple example. I know two brothers. The younger one loves nothing more than staying home, holed up with his books. The older brother, by contrast, throws himself into fishing. You could almost call it an obsession. The older brother looks at his younger sibling, always shut in at home, quiet and withdrawn, and finds it repulsive. In his mind, the logic goes something like this: he's so gloomy because he doesn't go fishing. If I could just get him out on the water, that would fix him. Convinced of this, he keeps dragging his brother out, whether the boy likes it or not. The younger brother finds the whole business unbearable, but the elder is high-handed about it. He slings the fishing rod over the boy's shoulder, hands him the fish basket, and orders him to tag along to the pond. So the younger brother grits his teeth, shuts his eyes to the discomfort, goes along, catches some slimy little crucian carp he finds disgusting, and trudges home in a foul mood. Now, did this cure the younger brother's problem, just as the elder had planned? Not in the slightest. If anything, it just deepened his resentment toward fishing. Fishing and the older brother's temperament probably matched perfectly, leaving no daylight between the two. That, we might say, is the elder brother's individuality, but it has nothing whatsoever to do with the younger brother. This is not an example of financial power. It is a case of authority, of one person's power bearing down on another. The older brother's individuality crushes the younger and forces him to fish. Of course, there are situations where a certain amount of high-pressure treatment is unavoidable. When you're attending class, when you're a soldier, when dorm life is run on a quasi-military model, and so on. In contexts like that, you can't completely escape strict discipline. But what I'm talking about here is something else. I'm speaking mainly about the time when each of you will stand on your own 2 feet and step into society. I need you to listen with that in mind. Here's the pattern I want you to be wary of. Let's say you discover work that you think is good, that you genuinely enjoy, that fits your nature perfectly. As you're lucky enough to run into that work and develop your individuality within it, you may start losing sight of the line between self and others. Before you know it, you catch yourself thinking, I'd love to pull that fellow into my circle too. He should join us. Once you're in that mindset, if you also possess power, you can end up reproducing the same skewed dynamic as those two brothers. If you possess money, you may start throwing it around in order to mold others into versions of yourself, using money as a tool of temptation, trying to use its pull to reshape people so they become the kind of person you personally approve of. One way or another, that's where serious danger begins. So here is how I've long thought about it. First, each of you must keep pushing forward until you find a place where your individuality can truly grow, a piece of work that fits you like a glove. If you fail to do that, your life will be, in a very real sense, an unhappy one. However, if society grants you the freedom to respect your individuality to that extent, to honor it, to give it room, then by the same logic you are bound to recognize individuality in others and to respect their natural inclinations as well. That, to my mind, is both necessary and simply the right thing to do. To declare, by nature I face right, so it's outrageous that that fellow is facing left, strikes me as clearly unreasonable. Now, when we get into complicated questions of good and evil, right and wrong, subtle issues made up of a tangle of moral and social factors, we do, of course, need careful analysis before we can say anything definite. But in matters where such problems are not deeply involved, or even where they are involved, but only in a relatively simple way, then as long as you yourself enjoy a certain freedom granted by others, you have no choice but to believe that you must grant the same degree of freedom to others and treat them as equals. Anything less would be a betrayal of the very individualism you claim for yourself.